Previously on Arcane Toaster, I reviewed Banjo-Kazooie. I made some wacky jokes, and I showed the box art for the game one too many times. This time, I review the sequel, and do the same things again. Majora's Mask Transition.
Okay, sorry about that. I just really wanted to use the text-to-speech, okay? Okay, so let me just begin the actual review. Banjo-Tooie was released in 2000 for the Nintendo 64 and is a direct sequel to Banjo-Kazooie. I didn't actually play this game back when it first came out or when I had the first game. I didn't even know that this game existed until I got more acquainted with the internet. Once I found out about it, I really wanted to play it and experience it for myself. And eventually I did get a cart for it and I did play it. Unfortunately, I think I sold the cartridge because I can't seem to find it anywhere. And yeah, getting a new cartridge is not exactly something I want to do because look at those. During this review, I'm going to be talking about the Xbox Live Arcade release, which this time around does not differ much from the original. So let's first talk about the plot of the game before we get off track. The game starts off 2 years after the events of the first game, where Grunty was defeated and fell down her mountain lair and got stuck under a rock, with her servant Klungo trying to shift the rock with no avail for over 2 years. Anyway, Banjo-Kazooie, Mumbo, and Bottles are hanging out in Banjo's house when suddenly what seems to be an earthquake hits Spiral Mountain with full force. Not really, it's just a giant drill machine of death, you know, those things. It just so happens to belong to Grunty's two sisters, and they're here to bring Grunty back from the dead. Mumbo goes out to check and see what the earthquake was about when he witnesses the sisters successfully resurrect Grunty, who's just a skeleton at this point. My god, that was a tongue twister. He runs back to warn the gang that she's back and that she's about to, yeah, just watch. All of them evacuate in time except Bottles, who thinks it's just a prank. Unfortunately, he gets blasted by the spell, and the next day he basically comes out and dies. Right in front of Banjo, just dies. Yes, Bottles, the short-sighted mole, the guy in the last game, is dead, and we haven't even started the game yet. Well, started, yeah, but we haven't controlled Banjo yet, okay. This game starts off with a really dark tone, and it sets the mood well. Something I could really appreciate for a sequel. Spiral Mountain looks rougher than the last time around. There are more enemies roaming it, there's rubble all over the place, and the music sounds somber. This game really starts off well, as I just said before. Now, one awesome thing about this game that more games like it should take note of is that you start off with every single move from the first game. Well, except for the useless punching move, which is now replaced with a more accurate peck attack. That's way better anyway. Heck, there's still molehills around Spiral Mountain that can teach you how to use the moves in case you forgot about them in the first game, or you never even played the first game at all. After following the digging machine through a tunnel, you end up in Jinjo Village and meet with King Jingling, the king of all Jinjos. He gives you a Jiggy to start off your journey with and opens a path in Bottle's house, and when you leave his palace, a giant beam launched by the witches hits his location and sucks the life out of him. So much so that he turns into a zombie. Yeah, now the baddies have a death ray on their hands. Already, this game is hitting some real heights in terms of seriousness. Banjo-Kazooie was around the 3 mark, while this game is over like 11.5. It's just insanely high. Yeah, all you can really do now is keep on going by passing through Bottle's home, where they eagerly await his return home, which leads to some pretty awkward conversations. Going through the passage, you end up in the Isle of Hags, the new hub world where you can find nodes, Jinjos, and the world entrances. Also, there's warp hole thingies in the ground that let you swiftly travel around, just like the cauldrons in Grunty's lair. It's also here where you meet the great Jiggy Wiggy, who lives in his temple where you get to perform puzzle challenges to unlock the individual worlds if you have enough Jiggies. If you ever did those secret Bottles minigames last time around, you'll know what you're getting into here. Okay, so I guess this is the part of the video where I ramble a lot about the changes this game brings to the table when it comes to the worlds and the gameplay. This is going to be fun and really tedious for me to edit together. First off, the worlds in this game are huge. There are more things to find and collect, more characters to meet, and more locations to visit and explore. I kid you not when I said that the first world of this game is probably as big and complex as one of the later worlds in Kazooie. Luckily, every world comes with these warp paths that let you teleport around the world to specific locations. This is incredibly useful, so you don't spend all your time just traveling on foot to a location of interest that you need to travel to a lot within one world. One of the improvements from the last game you'll probably immediately notice is that the notes now come in clusters and not very hard to find. They always come in 5, and the last 20 ones are jumbled together into one collectible, being the treble clef, which is usually pretty elusive to find. Yeah, that's a big word. The other thing you'll notice is that bottles, thanks to being dead and all, is now replaced with jam jars as the new tutorial/guide/mole. This time he will teach you a lot of different new kinds of moves. I won't go into a lot of them because there are so many which just drag the video out even longer, but I will go over a few of them. Those being the ability to climb on ledges, to shoot in first person while standing, flying or swimming, and the different kinds of eggs you'll unlock. These seriously rock. You get fire eggs, grenade eggs, ice eggs, and then the clockwork eggs, which launch small drones they can move around and then detonate. In my opinion, the highlights are the split-up pads, which allow Banjo and Kazooie to separate and be controlled individually for the use of puzzles and exploration. And that's all I want to cover about the moves. Now onto some other changes. Let's start with Mumbo and what role he serves this time around. When you meet Mumbo, he can't really transform you. However, he will be controllable if you give him a Globo, a strange little magic creature. Two can be found in every world. With Mumbo, you can use these small context-sensitive pads where you perform a spell and then do something, like control this giant statue or power up these generators, for example. And that's about it. I wish Mumbo got a little bit more use than just activating stuff in the environment. Why not give him his own challenges or minigames to complete, or more jiggies for him to get? Another thing this game expands on are the minigames, and I think they're very well executed. All of them follow a certain formula, do something under a specific time limit, and then collect or shoot red, blue, and green colored things. None of them really feel that annoying or pace-breaking to me, but I get why some people might not really like them because they do get pretty repetitive after a while. A new collectible to find are the Cheeto pages. Apparently Grunty ripped out all of his pages and you gotta find them all to collect more cheats for Cheeto, who's hiding out in Grunty's lair, or what remains of it. These cheats can be activated in a certain place in the game, but I won't show it off because I think part of the fun is discovering it by yourself. The empty honeycomb pieces were changed just a bit in this game. Instead of immediately upgrading your life counter, you gotta trade them with Honeybee for the actual upgrades. I don't really know why they added this, but whatever, it doesn't really hurt the game in any way. Another change are the Jinjos, which are now in way more different colors. The gameplay difference here is that instead of just finding 5 Jinjos that are bound to a level and then getting it jiggy when you get them all, every colored Jinjo family has a different amount of family members that you need to find throughout the entire game. When you finish one of these families, you will be awarded with a Jiggy. Another addition to the game is Humbawamba, an NPC who will transform you into different things if you bring her one of those Globos. This time around, you can transform into things other than just animals, like a truck and a stone thingy-majig, for example. I don't know what that thing is called. Next edition, actual boss fights. Yeah, in the last game there were some enemies that were slightly larger than the others who dealt more damage, but they were hardly boss fights. It was just way too easy, and they lacked absolutely no challenge of an actual boss fight in my opinion. This time the bosses actually put up a fight and have their own personalities and fighting styles, and the final addition is the train system. Later in the game, you'll unlock an ability to travel by train to the different worlds if you've unlocked them and opened the train station within them. This basically connects most of the worlds together, and it doesn't stop there. Some quests in the game have you going between different worlds and performing multiple tasks. I love this because it makes the worlds feel less like simple levels that you just magically warp to, and more like areas that are actually part of the game's world. It really helps with pacing and the feel of the game, and I just preferred this way than the Mario 64 route that Kazooie took, where every level was basically its own space that could take place anywhere. Okay, so I think it's finally time to go and look over each world individually, so hang on tight, this is going to be the most fun part of the review. First up is Mayhem Temple, a jungle-themed world that has these dart-shooting statues and cats, of all things possible. Yeah, I don't like cats, so yeah. This world can't actually be beaten in one run. You have to return to it later when you learn a specific move in the next world. So yeah, this game has backtracking, but I never found it annoying because most of the time you can take shortcuts to other worlds you need to go back to through the world you're currently in. But I digress. Mayhem Temple is a pretty great starting world, even if it is more challenging than some of the worlds in the last game. I like the setting and the music's solid. Next up is Glitter Gulch Mine, a mine that's really disorienting. I'm not a big fan of the layout of this world because it's just really hard for me to memorize. The music's pretty catchy though, so that's pretty much all I can say about it. It's just not very outstanding. Witcher World is one of the more creative locations for a world. Taking place in a theme park built by Grunny. It has theme attractions, a giant tilt, and pretty much anything a theme park should have, except that it's just completely insane. Jolly Roger's Lagoon is the water world of this game. This time, as a water world, it's leagues better than Clanker's Cavern. Swimming in this game feels slightly better, and the challenges the depths of the ocean hold for you are not very annoying, thankfully. Also, that music is downright hauntingly good. Pterodactyl Land is the first real vertical world. It has you scaling a giant mountain and a canyon full of dinosaurs and exploring the different caverns you can find. It's one of the biggest worlds I can think of, and one that I think should have had more warp pads put into it, because walking eventually becomes a chore when you have to start backtracking. Other than that really big gripe, I think it's a really solid world with some nice music, and I just love scaling this mountain. It just feels so good. Industries is just... This is the most complex world in the entire game. Yeah, it's not a bad world by any means, it's just really ingeniously tricky. It has you go back and forth collecting things here and there. It's why am I even trying? Why am I even trying? Why am I even trying? Why? Okay, screw this. Next world. Hailfire Peaks is hands down my favorite world in the game. What separates it from the rest is the fact that you pretty much get two worlds in one. You get the fire side where it's hot and there's lava, and then the ice side with snow, Swedish meatballs, and Volvo 740s. And honestly, this world has a better snow level than Freeze's Peak was. Yeah, it didn't have the Christmas feel, but I think it just feels better. I don't know, I can't really explain it. And the fire side is the better hot level than Gobi's Valley. I don't know how to compare them. I just want to gush over how much I love the design of this world, but that would take way too long. So let me just leave you with this lovely track. Cloud Cuckoo Land is interesting. It's a world that takes place in the clouds, and it's basically a giant mountain with a bunch of islands surrounding it that you reach by either flying or with these flower pad things. This is a world that's in dire need of more warp pads. I could just find two, one in the beginning and one in the central cavern, and with the size this world is packing, prepare for lots of walking and traveling. It's a pretty fun world, all things considered, but it's pretty lengthy, so expect to put several hours into it. So that was all the worlds this game comes with. They're all memorable in their own way, and I think they are about as good, if not better, than the ones in Kazooie. So let's transition over to the part where I gush about the music and how it holds up against its predecessor. The score for this game is excellent. Yet again, a fantastic soundtrack. It's catchy, memorable, and incredibly fitting. I love that this time around the soundtrack also takes a few pages from Donkey Kong 64. And have a few tracks be less upbeat and more melancholy, like the Ilo Hags theme, for example. Also, graphically, I think this game really knocks out its predecessor right out of the ballpark, right out. That's a team win, I think. Unfortunately, the N64 version, the frame rate is pretty bad. Not impossible to play the game or anything, it's just pretty horrible. Luckily, the Xbox Live Arcade port gets rid of that and runs at a solid 30 FPS throughout the entire adventure. So if you have a choice between the two versions, go for the XBLA release. Before I go on the ending part of the game, I want to talk about the stop and swap. Remember that I briefly brought it up in the last review? Well, the stop and swap related items in that game actually carry over to this game if you have a save file with those items collected, on the Xbox version. If you're playing the N64 version, however, this doesn't work. However, you can find the items in Tooie by finding them in the overworld in specific places. With these items, you can travel to a part of the overworld and trade the items for unlocks, like an additional character to play as in the multiplayer mode, or maybe a gamer pick if you're on Xbox. Oh yeah, and unlocks for this godforsaken game! Now it's time to talk more of the spoilery stuff, so go ahead and click to this part of the video if you don't want to see anything related to the ending be right spoiled for you. And that was not even grammatically correct, and I'm just gonna ramble for about a few more seconds here. I'm still giving you time to click, just, you know, go ahead and click, please. Or you're not clicking. Are you f***ing insane? Or what are you doing? Just click the goddamn. After you've unlocked the true final world of the game, Cauldron Keep, it's time to confront Grunty once and for all. Just like last time, you'll have to play a long and challenging game of Jeopardy, and it's actually not that hard, just tediously long. Or is it The Price is Right? Wait, it's Jeopardy, right? I forgot. I commonly mix them up. Okay, it's just the thing that happens. Once you're done with that minigame, Grunty takes off for the roof. You discover the giant ray gun machine and press a few buttons and manage to bring both Bottles and King Jingling back to life. And it's still not over yet. You got one more boss battle before the game's done with. The final boss battle is against Grunty and her hag drill machine of death. It'll try and laser you, drill you, and stand still while Grunty fires off spells at you, leaving the rear opening. Just... what? Yeah, the battle isn't that difficult, but it's pretty climactic. Once you're done with the battle and have destroyed Grunty completely, everyone takes the time to celebrate the victory and the credits roll. It's a weird bittersweet sort of feeling seeing the credits roll, knowing that this was one of the last games Rare put out before they changed, for better or for worse. I'd say worse because So, let's not beat around the bush for any longer. How does this gem of a game hold up against its legendary predecessor? In my opinion, pretty damn good. It's bigger, more complex, and funnier than the last game. It has more variety and even more charm. I still recommend you play the first game and then immediately follow up with this game instead of just starting off with this one. I've seen some people label the game as forgettable compared to the first game, but I disagree. In some ways, it's more memorable because of its scope. It tries to do more than its predecessor, and 9.9 times out of 10, everything it introduces works. All I can leave it at is that you should play both of these games because they're just that good. That's really all I have to say. I just really love these two games unconditionally. I play them at least once a year. They're just special to me. They're somewhat nostalgic, I guess, but they're just really excellently made 3D platformers that I think anyone who is into video games should give a shot.